All right, welcome back. This is Mike and Jeff. I'm Jeff. This is Mike. Say hi, Mike.
Hi, Mike.
All right, so we are recapping our earlier clip. We are highlighting the cast of Saturday Night Live, the original Not Ready for Primetime players. There are how many?
Nine.
Nine. Everybody thought there were seven. There are nine. So we've recapped three of them already. We did Gilda Radner, who was the first one cast. We did Chevy Chase, who was a writer when he first came on. And we've did Garrett Morris. When we talked earlier, but a little quickly about Garrett Morris, we talked about how I think they sort of felt like he was the token African American on the cast. We said that because in one of the books we read, they actually had mentioned that or inferred that. We didn't say that for any other reason because we didn't want to offend anybody, but that was actually brought up in one of the books that we had read earlier. We thought he was very talented, and we were talking off screen or off the air here about. I wondered about if in Living Color. Which was a historically African American cast, was so successful, hugely successful, that if that was the answer to the fact that Saturday Night Live really didn't have a diverse cast. And I think
that's exactly it.
Yeah, and it was so successful, and Saturday Night Live should have had a more diverse cast from day one.
So Garrett Morris was the token black guy, and then Eddie Murphy was the token black guy, and then Chris Rock was the token black guy. Right. Who was the token in Living Color?
Well, it had to be Jim Carrey, the white guy, right? Right. So, and it's just crazy because nowadays I'd like to think that everything's a little more integrated as we go forward, but there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. It really does. And I think as long as you have a white, older white males running, the entertainment business, there's going to be a lot of work that's going to need to continue to be done so we continue to have diversity. And so, but it's happening, but it's not happening fast enough. But so I wanted to make sure that our audience knew that. We said that because that was what was inferred in one of the books that we were reading. And so moving forward, so the next character we'd like to look at is the infamous Mr. John Belushi. Now, John probably is the one who had the shortest life of all of the original crew, but perhaps maybe one of the bigger impacts in his short life. John was born in Chicago. His family was Albanian. He comes from an Albanian family. Grew up in Wheaton, Illinois. Went to Wheaton High School. He started a rock band called the Ravens, and they actually had one hit that was rather locally well known called "Listen to Me Now."
Is it on YouTube? Do you know?
I don't know.
I've never looked at it.
I don't know. I have to look at that. But they had a local song. Probably not. I don't know if it ever got recorded or not, but apparently it was locally well known. He went to college to a little small junior college called College of DuPage, which is in Glen Ellen, Illinois, and he started a comedy troupe with two other guys called the West Compass. The West Compass Trio, and they were performing one night when a gentleman named Bernard Saling. Do you know who he is?
Yeah, Bernie Salins.
Yeah, Bernie Salins. He
Yes.
is one of the founders of Second City. Came and saw John and his trio perform and immediately invited John to join Second City. So John joined Second City, and there he met Harold Ramis and Brian Doyle Murray. Now, who's Brian Doyle Murray?
He is the brother. He's the older brother. Didn't Bill have two older brothers?
He had, and one younger brother.
Oh, did he?
Maybe
Okay.
he had two younger brothers. He's got three brothers at least.
And so he's the brother of Bill Murray, and then is the younger brother the one that was in a movie called Moving Violations?
And he was also he had a brother that played in Scrooged.
Oh, really?
With him,
okay.
yeah. And Wednesday Moy was brothers in Groundhog's Day.
Okay, I did not know that.
Yeah, I think so. Anyway, so he joins Second City, and eventually John moves to New York, where he gets on the National Lampoon Radio Hour, which is also a syndicated show. So do you see how these characters and these actors all sort of intermingled before Saturday Night Live? These guys were running in the same circles.
I think, in my opinion, I think the three biggest factors or the three biggest pools that they pulled from was National Lampoon's magazine, right. Radio Hour, Lemmings. And then there was Second City, and then Groundlings. And that's one thing I didn't mention earlier, is that Lorraine Newman was a founding member. She was one of the first casts of the Groundlings. And the Groundlings
they'll come into play
later on.
Right.
Because those are the two main that Lorne Michaels pulls from now is Second City and the Groundlings in Los Angeles. So, right. Mm-hmm. But anyways, those are the three that I really believe are the most of the Saturday Night Live cast came from.
That's right. So So on his trip, when he was on the syndicated radio show National Lampoon, he goes to Toronto, and he meets a gentleman named Dan Aykroyd, and they become fast friends. He then returns to New York, and he's ends up working with Chevy Chase and with Michael O'Donoghue, who then introduces him, John Belushi. We'll have to go to the 520 there. He ends up meeting Chevy Chase and Michael O'Donoghue, and they're working with Lorne Michaels to develop this show called Saturday Night Live. Well, at the time, they were developing a show for 10:30 on Saturday night. And they talked to Lorne Michaels about John Belushi. They say, hey, there's this guy on this National Lampoon radio show. And they start bragging about him. Now, at the time, John Belushi's starting to get well established. And Lorne Michaels says, hey, well, why don't you have him audition? Well, John Belushi thinks, I don't need to audition. First of all, I'm too well known to audition. And two, I hate television. Television sucks. I'm not dealing with it. It's beneath me.
I think he was a big hypocrite. I think that was all a big show.
It was.
And because, he hates television, and Lorne was like, if that's fine, then I'm not going to deal with you.
That's
if you're
exactly
that
right.
big of a snob about it, I'm not going to deal with you. But yet, at the same time, he had auditioned for the other Saturday Night Live on ABC.
With Howard Cosell.
Yeah, and they didn't take him.
They didn't take him.
A lot of the reason was because of that same exact attitude. He was also, were you going to talk about Mary Tyler Moore?
No, I did.
He was going to be, they really wanted him to be a recurring character on Mary Tyler Moore, one spot on one show, and they said, okay, if it does really well, which they thought it was going to, then he was going to be a recurring character on that show, but he turned it down.
Which was a huge mistake, because Mary Tyler Moore was the show of the 70s.
Right, and it produced Rhoda, and of course it produced some flops, but Rhoda was big in itself.
Every character on that show, not to get off line, but Rhoda, Valerie, Lou Grant, even the guy, the newscaster, had Too Close for Comfort, which was a hit show for the news guy. Who was the old guy that played on it? He played in
Ted Baxter.
Ted Baxter, yeah.
Ted Knight, the actor.
He had a show called Too Close for Comfort. So every main character on that show had their own show from the Mary Tyler Moore show. So for him to say he didn't like television, that was just going to shoot his own career in the foot. Yet he goes and he auditions for Lorne Michaels,
right? And
he becomes one of the main characters. And so yes, he was a hypocrite, and he was a bit unstable. So for all his belly aching and all of his whining about not wanting to be on TV and not audition, he goes and he auditions, and he goes, of course, he gets cast, and it changes his life, and it changes the very fabric of comedy. So he goes on and he develops some of the greatest characters on Saturday Night Live history. He becomes Samurai Fudoba.
That was my first one.
Oh, sure, absolutely. In fact, if you ever watch that, he's cutting the sandwich. I think it's Buck Henry is a customer. And if you look real closely, he actually cuts Buck Henry's ear when he's swinging the sword. He swings it, and he swings it. He doesn't even know he did it. He swings it, hits the sandwich. He hits Buck Henry's ear, cuts it, puts the sword away, doesn't even realize he did it. And Buck Henry doesn't even flinch.
Either I've not noticed that, or I'd forgotten about it.
You get that chance to look at it. If you get you guys go on YouTube, look at that. You'll see Buck Henry gets his ear sliced it's a small stage. It's a small area, so it's not surprising it happened. Some of the other characters, he did Henry Kissinger. He did James T. Kurt on the final episode. Yep. And he did Joe Cocker, who he used to imitate when he was with the Lemmings.
The Lemmings. That's where he first started.
He did. And then he actually was on stage with Joe Cocker in 1976 when Joe Cocker was a musical guest, and he imitated Joe Cocker on stage together in an episode of Saturday Night Live.
Now that you said so, it's been a while that whichever Saturday Night Live book I had read, I believe Paul McCartney had a birthday party, and he had John Belushi come and do the Joe Cocker impression at his birthday party.
That's fake. They did the song "Feeling All Right" together, and of course, his most famous creation he did with Dan Aykroyd when they did the Blues Brothers, Jake and Elwood. After Saturday Night Live, he went, of course, did Blues Brothers, Neighbors, Continental Divide with Bonnie Blair Brown. He did Steven Spielberg's 1941 together, which is one of Spielberg's flops. He also was also scheduled to be in Ghostbusters and in Spies Like Us. Unfortunately, he passed away. And then, and of course, in March of 1982, John Belushi was found dead from a drug overdose, which ended his career at the age of 33. For a man that young, he sure packed a lot into his
Was
life.
John Belushi supposed to be Bill Murray's part?
I don't know.
I think that's what
It
he
could
was
have been.
supposed to have
It
been.
could
But
have
imagine Belushi and Murray if they were both in it.
I do think it was because Bill Murray was asked to be in the show, and up until the day that they were filming, they didn't even know if Bill Murray was going to show up.
They wanted John Candy to be in it too.
Oh,
My
I didn't know.
goodness! I mean, Ghostbusters is great in its own right, but imagine
Well, Eddie Murphy
with
was supposed
those-
to be in it as well.
Yeah, yes.
So, yeah.
Who knows? But I mean, you can't go back and Ghostbusters is
Yeah.
great as it is.
As it is, yeah, standalone. So that's the history of John Belushi.
Okay, well, my next up for me, let me look at my list here, and that is we've done Belushi. Now, well, we went to Garrett. Did we do Lorraine?
We have not done Lorraine.
I talked. Okay, so
Yeah, you skipped her.
I did Garrett, and we skipped Lorraine. Okay, so Lorraine Newman, she was the one from the Groundlings, as I mentioned earlier,
Right.
Which
is in Los Angeles.
one of the interesting things that I found out is prior to Saturday Night Live. Okay, so she graduated in the United States. She went overseas to England, and she auditioned for several theater schools. I think 4 different theater schools, and I don't think she made any of them. I think she made the second audition, but that was it. But while she was overseas, she spent 1 year with Marcel Marceau. If you know who that is,
Yeah, a mime, right?
that's
Yeah.
probably the most famous mime in the world. Lorne Michaels didn't Lorne Michaels? I think he said he hates mimes.
Right.
Somebody
She has a mime physique.
Yeah,
She really did. Yeah,
somebody had one of the writers got hired because he said at the end of his interview, by the way, I hate mimes, and that helped him get hired. But going back to Lorraine, she spent a year with Marcel Marceau. She was one of the founding members of the Groundlings, and she met or first worked with Lorne Michaels in, I believe it was the 3rd Lily Tomlin special.
Oh, okay.
She had 3 specials, and I don't know if it was the second or third one, but I think it was the 3rd Lily Tomlin special. Lorne, either she worked with him there, or Lorne hired her and then liked her so much, brought her aboard on Saturday Night Live. But that's what I've got of the everything that Lorraine did prior to. Any kind of memorable characters? Again, she felt like she was an outcast there in the group. I think she was the youngest member of the players. And any cast that I remember, I have to write it down again, but without looking at my list, I know there was a childish teenager that she played. I don't know the name of it. And then she was in the Coneheads. And then the only other thing that I really remember, I know she was in several things, but recurring characters. She was often a reporter on Weekend Update as well.
Right.
Anything else, it just doesn't come to mind.
I remember reading one time that she was not a big fan of recurring characters. She didn't want characters that were redone over and over. She always wanted to have something new every time.
And that's probably why.
And that may be why, that she didn't do it. Which makes her less memorable in some levels.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
It also makes her more challenging for her to do new things every time.
Yeah.
So, and I think post-career, she didn't do a whole lot. I think she went and raised a family. I think she was in Problem Child 2, which I'm surprised.
Forgettable.
I didn't think it. I thought it would win an Academy Award that year for sure, but I don't know why it didn't. Who knows? But anyway, so yeah, that was Lorraine Newman. So what we'll do is we are at almost close to our 15 minutes, so we'll go ahead and cut this one short, and we'll go ahead and redo our 3rd segment, which will probably finish us out. And then next week we'll get into the episodes.
Good deal.
Which will be fun. It'll be a lot of fun. But I think it's good that we get a good character base on who these original characters were. And as we go forward, I think it's important we'll bring back real quick on the Groundlings, because as time moved forward, Lauren did go out to California more and grab some characters. The biggest one from the Groundlings is probably Will Ferrell, I would imagine.
One of it, it's not the biggest.
Yeah, but there was a lot of others that came from the Groundlings.
Yeah, and in the 70s, there's very few. Besides Lorraine Newman, there was Pat Morita, there's Mr. Miyagi, and another one that escapes me, and not a Saturday Night Live member. Then you go to the 80s, there was a few more names that I recognize, but once we hit the 90s, boom, there's just a bunch of Saturday Night Live members. But for now, we'll either see you in a few seconds, or we'll see you the next time.
Stand by for
Thanks
part
for
3.
stopping in.